Well, good morning, everybody. It is the 21st of June, 2023, and a lot of awesome stuff is about to happen for the channel, for me, and I'm very excited about the way everything is going. And should be tomorrow's upload will be the first episode of a new podcast I'm starting with my brother. Gonna work on that tonight and I think it's going to go really well, and I'm excited for it. So keep your eyes out for that, and it'll be a premiere if that's the case. So you'll know by tomorrow morning if this next upload is going to be podcast. Anyway, a lot of stuff with orcas recently. Remember, we had the attacks on these boats up in what is it, the Mediterranean, up there in Europe. Yeah, mystery orcas with bulbous heads wash up dead in unexplained mass stranding. The 9 type D orcas were found on a beach in Chile, with a necropsy of the female showing it was a healthy adult with no sign of human involvement in its death. The type of orcas, I will also go over that in this video. This is a type D orca filmed off the coast of Chile in 2019. They look not exactly what you would think an orca would look like. They have some differences. A strange and rare group of orcas has stranded on a beach in Chile. The first event of its kind in 67 years and only the second ever recorded. The orcas belong to a Type D subgroup, a distinct group of orcas native to the southern hemisphere. Type D orcas are so different from other orcas that scientists suggest they might actually be completely separate species. I think there's a good possibility that this type D orca whale could be one of the largest undescribed species left on the planet. Robert Pittman, a marine ecologist in Oregon State University, told Live Science. Orcas are divided into at least 9 different subgroups or types, spread all over the world, but type D orcas, which have smaller white patches by their eyes and rounded melon heads, are some of the most unique. Scientists first came across type D orcas in 1955 when a group of unusually shaped killer whales washed up on a beach in New Zealand. But the animals weren't identified as a distinct group of orcas until the early 2000s when researchers spotted whales that matched the odd facial markings and body shape of the 1955 New Zealand orcas in photographs from all over the southern hemisphere, the southern oceans. Excuse me. Wow. Yeah. Look how sickle shaped that fin is. That's way more sickle shaped than that one right there. Those fins look completely different. That one kind of looks. That's interesting. The 1955 beaching was the only known stranding of Type D orcas until the 2 later incidents. In November last year, researchers in Punta Arenas, also know at the very southern tip of Chile, were notified that a stranded female, which identified as a Type D orca due to the distinctive small eye patch, rounded head, and curved dorsal fin. The team took photos and measurements of the animal and transferred its remains to a museum. Later that month, a group of 8 stranded orcas were reported about 2.5 miles away. These individuals were much more decayed, but the researchers believe they were also Type D orcas. The researchers published the result of their study on June 8th in the journal Polar Biology. The scientists aren't sure why the 9 orcas died or ended up on the beach. Whales might strand themselves for a variety of reasons, including illness or human use of underwater sonar. Though the causes are not entirely understood. The team's analysis of the lone female orca showed it was a healthy adult. There were no signs of human involvement in the death, such as entanglement or a collision with boats. The scientists didn't detect parasites in the animals, and all the abdominal organs and heart appeared healthy. The other 8 more decomposed orcas were measured, but did not have necropsies performed of them. But Type D orca strandings are likely rare for a good reason, said Pittman. Type D orcas only live between 40 and 60 degrees south, and there is very little land for them to beach on in that stretch of the ocean. The only major land masses are New Zealand, Tasmania, and the bottom tip of South America. I have to admit, I never thought I would hear about another Type D stranding of killer whales in my lifetime, Pittman, who reviewed the new paper before it went to print, told Live Science via email. Um, Other types of orcas are found as far south as Antarctica and as far north as Greenland. Some of these types ranges overlap, but they don't appear to interbreed or even necessarily interact with each other. And much like the Type D orcas, scientists have speculated other groups might be different enough from each other to qualify as separate species or subspecies. Pittman and others did some of the first genetic analysis on type D orcas and found that the group probably have a very small population size with a high degree of inbreeding. But unraveling the mystery of how these enigmatic marine mammals are related to each other will probably require more biopsies and tissue samples to learn more about type D orcas, said Pittman. Okay, I have a couple things on this. One having to do with the strandings, and two having to do with the type of orca. Um, it wouldn't surprise me if it's a separate species, like that they're genetically different enough. Even though they look the same, they can be considered completely different. I mean, you'll get, king snakes will look, relatively the same with some different patterning on them, but will be completely different species, but it's still considered a king snake. And we see that as a difference. Um, Rattlesnake species, they are all rattlesnakes, but they're completely separate species. So it makes sense. Um, I'm going to briefly go over these different types of orcas. Uh, North Atlantic type 1. Small orcas live in a closely related pods and appear to be generalist eaters. Like, each one eats differently. They have their own, like, think about great white sharks as an example. We think of great white sharks and we think of the ones that breach out of the water and grab seals. That's not all great white sharks. Those are specific groups of great whites that live in certain areas that tend to do that. Like especially around like South Africa, but the great white sharks that you see off the coast of Florida sometimes, they're not going to be doing that. They're not going to be breaching out of the water after anything because like that's not what they eat. They eat mostly fish. Um, and there's certain orcas that eat only stingrays. Some that eat seals, and will beach themselves to grab seals. Some eat, live in the Arctic and use the ice to hunt. Some eat, only salmon. Like there are so many different types. See, like North Atlantic Type 2 primarily feed on whales and dolphins, particularly minke whales. Um, then there's residential orcas that are fish specialists, Biggs orcas, North Pacific ecotypes of Biggs, transient orcas, mammal eaters. Offshore, the third ecotype found in the North Pacific. Little is known about the elusive offshore orcas as they live far from land, mainly over the outer continental shelf, and are rarely encountered. So, like, uh, these travel in big pods way offshore. Then there's Southern Hemisphere Type A. These are large orcas and prefer open areas in the Southern Oceans and feed on primarily minke whales. Type B, large, also called pack ice orcas, are foragers of seals and loose pack ice in the Antarctic continent. Type B, small, Jalash orcas, named from the Jalash Strait in the Antarctic Peninsula, where they're most often are found, are smaller than Type A and pack ice orcas. Their diet is unknown, but they eat penguins. So they probably eat smaller animals like penguins. Type C, the smallest ecotype of raw sea orca, males reach 20 feet long. Like other Antarctic orcas, they are gray and white and have blah blah blah. Eating toothfish, but is still known. They're fish eaters. Type D, those are the ones that we're talking about in this article. Were discovered in 1950s by a mass stranding event in New Zealand. However, at the time, let's see, what do they eat? A handful of sightings are rare, but consuming Patagonian toothfish. But like the raw sea orcas, it is still unknown if they are fish specialists. So there are large orcas, there are small orcas. There are some that eat mammals, there are some that eat fish. It's all over the place. And there's some I didn't even go over. So the point is that there are many types of orcas. So if they're all like, if they stick to that niche, I think that's the reason why there are so many orcas. Because if you had every single orca following the same niche, they could only live in certain areas because they could only live where they would eat those certain things, and and their populations, you might be huge in some areas, but then they basically would be unexistent, non-existent in others. So like, you know, because they've spread out genetically and go after different things or different sizes, they have been able to survive in a huge variety of ecosystems. And like we get them off of Florida sometimes. So like they could be in the coldest areas of the world or the some of the warmest. So like they are very successful in what they do, and if they attacked people, we would be in big trouble. And they probably wouldn't be here anymore because we would have wiped them out. But what I was gonna say, so there's type D with the mass strandings. I have a theory that these guys are so smart. Orcas are so smart. They basically probably have a close intelligence to us. Maybe it's a different type of intelligence. They can't take it to the next level basically like us. Like, we think of intelligence now. Like you look back even a couple thousand years during the Roman times, there were smart people. It was a different type of intelligence. Like they didn't have the knowledge we have now. The average person would vastly outperform even a good portion of the very smart people back then. Now, if they, like, how do I say this? Because they didn't have the tools that we have a big head start over them. So these guys might have the intelligence of like the first man. Like they had the ability to think, but they don't have the physical ability to change their environment. So like they never got past a certain point, but they still have these emotions that people do. I think. What if these ones that are doing these mass strandings are part of a religion? Like their own religion, and like they believe that like some of them, or maybe it's a cult, and like they commit mass suicide to be with their leaders. It has nothing to do with us. We just think that every time something crazy happens in the animal kingdom, it's because of us. What if it has nothing to do with us, and they just are part of an orca cult? And they like no, not the blue oyster cult. No, they're a part of the orca cult, and they just do these mass strandings, and like that's something that's been passed down. Like, oh, this is something our ancestors did, so it's maybe for the greater good we need to, we're the leaders of this cult, so we need to commit suicide in order to protect the rest of us. I don't know. I as much It's a fun thing to think about. Do I think that's actually what it is? Probably not. Would I be interested to see if maybe it had something to do with that, or maybe like this is something that they're doing on their own will, like they are purposefully committing suicide for something that has nothing to do with us, like a cult. You know, who knows? Maybe they are sold false pretenses that if we get on land like this, we're not supposed to, but they're like, you know what? They tell us that it's bad to go on land, but like we see all those people out there, or we think that we should try to make our living on land. I don't know. Maybe they. I'm stupid when it comes to this stuff. I'm just making these conjectures. I don't know. It's something very interesting to think about. If you agree with me at all or think I'm completely wrong, I want to hear your comments down below. Let me know what you really think about this situation. Am I way off base by saying that it could be something that they just decide to do on their own, or are these different species? Let me know what you think down below. I would love to hear it. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out my Patreon. I would greatly appreciate that. Um, and when I start doing this podcast, and I'll explain this during the podcast, but we're going to do an extra 30 minutes that is just kind of off the rails a little bit, that you can only see if you are a patron. So there's another reason to go over there. So like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you on the next one. Stay wild. Wait. Stay wild.